Hello and welcome to our first live Q&A session of EXARC's online portion of the 2022 ICOM Prague, A Sustainable Revolution for Open Air Museums conference. I'm joined here by our wonderful speakers from session one. So our first question is addressed to Sarah Mané and Jenny Skillen, although I guess the other members of the Heritage Hive are welcome to answer as well. One issue with museum shops is that it's often difficult to buy directly from makers of replicas and then put the necessary markup and tax on top of it to make it viable for the museum shop to retail economically, as most replica craft people are already selling at trade prices and can't offer discounts. This makes it tricky to offer good quality replicas to the public at a price that the maker, the retailer, and the buyer can all justify. Do the speakers have any ideas to overcome this so that we can see more quality craft work made by small sustainable businesses and less mass-produced tourist tat in museum shops? That's from Sally.
When we think about the sorts of things that are in museum shops, there are a couple of different things. First of all, there's replicas, which, as you say, are quite difficult to make for a cheap price. And I think that's actually where it's more about thinking about how we can think about what sorts of products are suitable for visitors to museums, but that can be made at a lower price. An example of that would be, for instance, something that could be made as a kit. So if it's based on a replica item, but it's actually in kit form. So you're not doing all of the work that's required to produce this item. You're just providing the materials and the instructions, and then the person actually makes that themselves. So it's more of a learning thing than the actual thing, because if it is an actual thing, then it's definitely going to be more expensive. That's one option.
Thanks. I personally really enjoy making kits, so I always enjoy seeing those kind of things in museum shops. So thank you. Our next question is aimed for the Scottish Crannog Centre, and there's two questions here from Katie Elliott. So I'll ask the first and ask you to answer, and then I'll ask the second after that one. What is your time frame for implementing all of your pillars of sustainability?
Hi there, thank you very much. The time frame is, as you might have gathered, quite a long one for some aspects. With regards to things like human sustainability and social sustainability, we've already begun to do that, and that's very much a process that an organisation just goes through, and you gradually make the improvements to how you operate and how you make those changes within and without. With something like the environmental sustainability, some of those things will be happening over the course of the next year whilst we make our transition to the new site and begin to build those buildings and so forth. Ultimately, we want the whole centre to be operational with all the different elements of the new development in place within 4 or 5 years. But with something like the coppicing, which, as Ian was saying, that's going to be something that doesn't really yield results. If we, say, harvest the larch over the next 12 months, then we'll be looking at planting the hazel coppice, and it's going to be either an 8-year cycle, 10-year cycle, 12-year cycle. So it's going to be 12 years before we get to sort of reap some of those benefits there. Economic, well, that's just gradually going to come into play as we diversify the things we do so that we're not reliant purely on income through admissions. And again, we'll hopefully see results in that first year of the move, but definitely by 4 or 5 years, we should be seeing some really good sort of tangible results. So some of it will be quick, but others definitely, with, say, hazel coppice, is definitely going to be a slow process.
The second question that we've got from Katie is, have you faced any difficulties with making the museum exclusive? So, for example, perhaps employees that have been part of the museum for a longer time not wanting to embrace the changes?
I think potentially, yeah. I don't think necessarily our existing workforce, but certainly over the past 4 or 5 years, it was difficult to embed some of those ideas. And we have been embedding these ideas for about 4 years now, 5 years. And I think, to be fair, that's probably true of many professions which are slightly sort of ivory tower in nature and have that kind of closed shop quality, that it is sometimes quite difficult to breach that and to sort of come in from the outside. So, yeah, in terms of the nature of sort of bringing in any changes to any profession that's been so used to doing things a certain way, then yes, there will always be some resistance inevitably. But luckily here, no, we've all pretty much embraced it wholeheartedly. But But as I say, we have been sort of gradually doing that over the past 4 or 5 years. Some people did experience difficulty with those ideas. Normally, I think you would sort of embed them slowly and gradually and allow your workforce to sort of move along with you. But we've had to sort of do things at quite a fast pace here because our organisation 4 or 5 years ago was actually at a crucial sort of economic point. So we had to sort of push through a lot of these ideas in quite a hurried way.
Thanks, that was a really interesting answer. I have a question for Naphibahun. So your project sounds really interesting and it sounds like you've got a lot to do. When do you actually anticipate being able to open to the public as an open air museum?
So we are working on it right now, and probably by December, we'll be able to open it.
That's really cool. We actually have a couple more questions for the Scottish Crannog Centre. We've got one from Anna Hinton here saying, can you see this sustainability approach working on another open air museum in the UK?
Absolutely. I think that it would be wonderful to sort of see this kind of thing embraced all the way across. And in fact, one thing that we didn't mention in our video is that with our craft fellowships, the younger people that we're employing as coppice trainees and so forth, what we want to eventually create out of their roles is that they are peripatetic and they can be offered to other organisations. So for example, if there's another museum elsewhere in the UK who says that they want a coppicer or a thatcher for 3 days to help with one of their replica buildings, then we can send our folk down to them. They can sort of do that work, train up their folk, and then maybe we'll get that sort of return favour at some point in the future. So it would be absolutely lovely if this was a model that was embraced by all aspects of open air museums.
That's a really nice model. Then we have a question from Seren Young, also for the Scottish Crannog Centre. What is the approximate time frame for your new centre to be open and fully functioning for the public?
Our time frame is that by next summer we are operational on our new site. What we hope to have over there is a reconstruction of a roundhouse that was excavated at Pitlochry, a Bronze Age roundhouse, and 4 smaller buildings for our demonstrations, some temporary buildings for our welcome aspects, gift shop, museum, cafe and an office, and also the foundations of the first crannog in the water. So that's what we need to have in place by next summer. And then after that first phase is over, then we'll do the rest of the development over, touch wood, 4 years, but don't hold me to that.
Nice, that sounds really good. And then will there be a reliance on volunteers for the running of this new site?
We will hopefully have plenty of volunteers involved, certainly in the building of all the archaeological buildings as well as after we've opened. We already have lots here already. When I first came here 10 years ago, there was 1 occasional volunteer. We now have up to 20 annually, and it's absolutely wonderful to see so many people coming through, lots of archaeology undergraduates getting lots of training and experience with us. So that's absolutely fantastic. And we definitely hope to continue and work on that model. And I think it's worth pointing out that if you do have volunteers, you want to have lots of input from them, this is a two-way, it's a very healthy two-way relationship. You make sure that you've got plenty of opportunities for them. Whenever we have staff meetings and global staff communication, they are always included in that. They are definitely part of the team. And we have a whole range of them, as I say, from young children coming, under 16s come in at weekends just to get some work experience from school. Plus we have people in their 70s and everybody in between. So it's very much about adding a really useful, very valuable and valued group of people to our workforce. That diversity is really important, we think.
That sounds great. It sounds like a really fun place to be a volunteer for. Quite connected to that is another question for the Crannog Centre, which is what opportunities will there be for young people to get involved and how can we keep up to date with the project?
Young people is very much at the heart of what we're doing. We've got several schemes. We already have an apprenticeship scheme, customer service volunteers, CSV, to do the Scottish vocational qualification. So we have an apprenticeship scheme already set up. We're 3 years into that, taken on some extras this year. Some of those went on, the earliest group went on to do the Museum Gallery Scotland Museums Practice apprenticeship with us, an extra year. We've also got Kickstart options and we have signed up to the Young Persons Guarantee, that's a Scottish Government framework. But with regard to the craft fellowships and these sustainable sort of traditional building skills, a lot of young people are definitely coming through to do that as well. So I would say, to be honest, that we've really focused on young people in a lot of these schemes that we want to do, because this is a very expensive area to live in. It's completely unaffordable for most. A lot of school leavers, as soon as they've left school, the first thing you want to do is just clear off and go and live in one of the cities. Very few of them actually want to stay here. And if this is going to be truly, and look into that longer term vision that we were talking about earlier, that very much long term end goal, if this is to be a really healthy place to want to stay and work in, then that's all about the young people staying here, or at least coming into this area and being able to afford to stay here and have a meaningful job to do. It's also about just upskilling the workforce of the future. You can't quite see because I'm a bit bleached out by the camera here, but I'm old, I need to retire soon. And it's about sort of making sure that we've got the generations of the future upskilled to take over from all us old fogies.
That was a good answer, thanks. I think I've got one final question, and this is one from me for the Lauresham Experimental Archaeology Farm. You mentioned in your presentation your ridge and furrow farming and how it seems to be a more sustainable way of doing that kind of farming. Do you intend to use that information in combination with kind of farming that's providing food sources for the modern world, if you had someone asking?
Well, certainly. We are already in contact with different universities of agriculture to talk things through. And it is at this stage, and first of all, an interesting fact that it seems to be something resilient from the past that can use for today or even tomorrow, that we have a system that can cope with climate extremes, maybe a little bit better than some of the modern systems. So now the big question is how to apply that to modern day agriculture. If that's possible, you have to think about machinery. Not everybody can plow this kind of thing with a plow or with an ox or a horse, or wants to do so. So there's a lot of work to do, but I think there's a lot of potential. And this brings in the way we as museums can have for that discussion.
That sounds really interesting. Thanks. So I think that that's all the questions that we have for this Q&A session.